So presumably you can see my presentation at the moment. Yes?
Yep, thank you very much. Do start when you're ready.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Vincenzo, and I'm an associate editor at IOPP Publishing, where I work across a number of journals, including 2D materials, nanotechnology, and superconductor science and technology, or SAST, as we call it. So I have about 25 slides today, and the plan is that I give you a brief introduction to IOPP Publishing before talking about peer review, and we're gonna see how peer review looks like at IOPP. So let's start with an introduction to IOPP. So here you can see the main IOPP building, IOPP Publishing building an office in Bristol. We are a learned society publisher subsidiary of the Institute of Physics, pretty much embedded in the community that we serve. Our mission is to deliver impact, recognition, and value to the scientific community. And we do that by publishing more than 80 physical science journals. Physics World is a magazine that we published on a monthly basis, and it's part of our journalism program. And we also have an ebook program. And all the money that we make funds the activity of the Institute of Physics. So this is the main building of the Institute of Physics, which is in London. The Institute is a leading scientific society promoting physics and physicists since 1874. The Institute have more than 50,000 members worldwide. As I said, the headquarters is in London, and the mission of the Institute is to advance physics research, application, and education globally by engaging with policymakers, schools, university, and the general public to develop greater awareness and understanding of physics. Okay, we are more than 300 employees. As I said before, the main office of IOPP Publishing is in Bristol, but we have offices and representatives based all around the world, including Beijing and Philadelphia. Those are the two biggest offices together with the one in Bristol. And this reflects the fact that our authors, referees, and readers are based all around the world. As I said before, we publish more than 80 journals, and these are the covers of some of our titles, and hopefully you can recognize some of them. Top left corner, there's 2D materials, SAST, nanotechnology, which we celebrate the 30th anniversary of nanotechnology last year. It was actually the first journal solely devoted to the study and application of nanostructured materials. But generally speaking, our journals cover all the areas of physics and related disciplines such as astronomy, astrophysics, atomic, molecular physics, optics, condensed matter, engineering, environmental researchers, research, pretty much everything within the big bubble of physics science. So all of these journals have something in common, and is the fact that they are all peer-reviewed. What is peer review really? Is the process whereby experts in the field assess an academic paper before deciding whether or not it should be published. And why do we need peer review? And so there are some considerations to do. For example, if we look at the volume of published articles, this is growing rapidly. And if we look at the last 5 years, it was a massive increase of the number of papers written every year. So essentially, we need and the public and the research, the scientific community as a whole, need a reliable indicator of what they can trust and what they can believe. And so peer review in this sense is a critical filter for millions of research papers that are written every year, and also gives the author feedback on how they can help how they can improve a paper, and helps editors decide what to publish. And so it's a vital element for the publishing and the scientific community. Let's see the peer review and the various type of peer review. So these are perhaps the most common ones. And so we have a single blind peer review when the referees of the paper know the identity of the authors, and the authors do not know the identity of the referees. And there's a double blind peer review where both authors and referees are anonymous to each other. And in fact, we call it double anonymous. There's an open peer review when all the reviewers' names and often their reports are published with the article. The peer review can be collaborative, where the reviewers interact with each other, can access each other's report either during the review process or immediately afterwards. And there's the post-publication peer review, when online comments on the published version of the article are allowed, independent of any formal peer review that might have happened already. And this is the case of some preprint repository where the article is briefly accessed by an associate editor, and then it's put online and people can comment, and the authors can make changes and amend the manuscript as they receive the comments. Okay, so at IOPP, at the moment, most of our journals currently operate a single blind peer review, which is historically is the normal for physics journals. And up until now, authors could opt in to double blind peer review on our Express title only. But this is going to change soon, in fact, by the end of 2021. This last year, actually 2020, IOPP Publishing committed to move all its own journals to double anonymous. Something important to say is that we will not reject submission on the basis that the authors have included their information. If the authors include their details on the manuscript, we will proceed the submission via a single blind peer review. So in other words, the authors can still choose single blind peer review. Double anonymous has the potential to reduce bias with respect to gender and race, country of origin and affiliation. And we do this in the hope that this should lead to a more equitable system. Okay, so the next two slides are perhaps the core of the presentation. And so I'll show you what happened when an article is submitted to an IOPP journal. And I'm going to give you some figures from us in 2018 that hopefully will give you an idea of how the peer review is structured at IOPP Publishing. So as an associate editor at IOPP Publishing, I'm one of the 60+ peer review staff in-house who manage the peer review from start to finish. And on average, within the first 5 days after submission, we preliminarily assess the article and its suitability for consideration for publication. We check the scope, the quality, and really want to make sure there are not ethical issues with it. If an article is unsuitable for the journal to which it was originally submitted, we will let the authors know within 5 days. And so we estimate that every year our staff save reviewers at least more than 87,000 hours performing these initial checks. If an article is unsuitable for that journal, we might offer the authors a transfer to a more appropriate journals. And in 2018, we agreed to transfer almost 3,000 articles. So if the article is indeed suitable for peer review, we will select and invite the reviewers to comment on that specific piece of work. And it takes for us approximately 15 minutes to find suitable reviewers for each paper. We have a number of tools to rely on. Okay, so in 2018, we had about 25,000 reviewers contributing reports for our journals. And overall, the editors at IOPP reviewed 41,000 review reports. And once we receive the reports, we're able to finally make a first decision. And this is on average happen within 43 days from submission. This is some numbers across all of the IOP journals. And the paper could at that point be accepted and published straight away, although this is quite unusual for that to happen without a revision, but it does happen occasionally. A paper can also be rejected, transferred to a more appropriate journal. However, often we ask the authors to make a revision of their paper. And once the revision version of the revised version of the manuscript is submitted, we check the resubmission again. And at that point, the article could be accepted, rejected, or could go around the circle again and having another one or more rounds of revision. And only when all of the concern of the referees are addressed, the article is accepted and published online within 24 hours. And this takes approximately 83 days on average, but it really doesn't necessarily reflect some of the journals that I work on. For example, 2D materials and nanotechnology have a shorter turnaround time. And it's about, from start to finish, it's about 70 days. I think SAST is close, it was close to 80 last year. I'll talk about problems and the award scheme that we have at IOP later towards the end of this presentation. But let's talk about why you should do peer review, what you should review. So qui pro quo, as they say. So you expect others to review your paper, so you should do the same in return. It is a good way to validate and help improving others' research. And again, a good way to stay up to date and be at the forefront of your field. You can gain recognition from it, and it can help your career in certain cases. It definitely helped my career back in the day. So if you're interested in becoming a reviewer, we may invite you, or you can volunteer. And in this case, I would recommend that you contact the editor or the publisher with your interest, your credential. And I'm very sure that you can find the contact details in the journal webpage. And when you get a request to referee, there are a couple of things that you will have to consider. First of all, do you have the necessary subject expertise? Are you able to meet the deadline set? Do you have any conflict of interest? And will you be able to review a revised version? And so my top tip here is, if you don't think that you will be able to make the deadline, you can ask for an extension at the time of the invitation. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you cannot review the articles yourself, please suggest other experts who might be able to help. So what it is that we look for in a referee or reviewer? We have a large online database of referees, which includes their subject expertise, author history, reviewing history. If someone has been invited within the last month, we won't use them to avoid overworking them. We also rate the quality of referee reports provided. So if someone consistently provides biased or poor reports, we will stop using them. We also consider author's suggestion, but make sure that are not any potential conflict of interest. And so if you want to become a reviewer for IOP and you have a Scholar One account with us, please make sure that your research interests are up to date, because those are the ones that we use the most when selecting our reviewers. Okay, so what do we ask you to do before start reviewing an article? A couple of things, very easy. Make sure that you have the required access to the publisher peer review system, and you can access the article and the supplementary information. You read the reviewer guidelines for the journal. This is very important, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And if you have any question, obviously get in touch and ask any question you may have. Okay, so what should you do? Should you check what should you check for as a reviewer? And the first thing is probably look for novelty and the relevance. And you should ask yourself two really simple questions. Is the work original? Does it contain new material? And if it does, is the work interesting? How relevant is the work to researchers in your field? And so again, a top tip is check the journal guidelines when making this type of assessment, because we have different journals and different journals will have different novelty and impact requirements. So for example, in the materials portfolio, we have 2D materials, which is arguably one of the most impactful journal that we have. We also have Material Research Express, which we consider a more inclusive journal, should we say. And so obviously the impact requirements will be different, but if you look at the review guidelines in the journal web page, you will have some guidelines. So after that you make an assessment on the novelty, we should look at the readability and the accuracy of this article. And so essentially asking yourself is, it's understandable, it's correct, and what about the science? There are any unsupported claims, is the work correct, errors, flaws, mistakes, and then look for presentation and language. Something important to say is that it's okay to give feedback about the quality of the language, particularly if it's not good enough for you to understand the paper. But don't spend too much time worrying about copy editing and formatting. We have production editors who can handle this at proof stage. So instead focus on the text, the figures, tables, the caption, the length of the manuscript, and ultimately on whether or not the message is clear. Okay, so let's talk about some cases of misconduct. These are probably the most common ones: plagiarism, a substantial replication of significant elements of a document published by other authors without attribution. There's self-plagiarism, which is sometimes called duplicate publication, and it's the reuse of a significant or identical or nearly identical portion of one's own work without citing the original work. Now, we check all submitted articles for plagiarism and self-plagiarism using a piece of software that is called Authenticate. Back in the day, I remember that this software was used for checking PhD theses before they were handed over. But it's still useful for the referees to watch out for this, although we check every single submission. Sometimes people might get asked to referee the same manuscript in different journals. Then we have parallel submission of the same, essentially the same article to two journals at the same time. This is quite tricky and sneaky, maybe. Then there's fabrication and falsification, which is the misrepresentation of data and results. So you've been invited to report, or you have read the article, and now it's time to write your report. So this is the title of the report that we hope to read. So first of all, I'd say you could start with an overall summary and then provide more detailed feedback later. So trying to be constructive, comment on the strength of the paper as well as what needs to be improved. Please number your point, because that helps us and helps the authors. Be professional and polite. There's no need to put it personally. And be specific with any criticism that you give. And at the end, please make a clear recommendation to the editor, and don't be afraid to say, I recommend that the editor reject this article. So be constructive, as I said, and ultimately think about what would you like to receive. So we ask our reviewers to fill a report form. And here is an example of what type of question you might be asked in addition to your report. So first, we ask the reviewer to complete a quality assessment and rate the scientific rigor significance and originality of the paper, usually scoring on a 1 to 10 basis. And other questions might include things like, is the article fully or partially in your area of expertise, or is the article better suited to the scope to another IOPP journal? And then we'll ask the reviewers for their recommendation, and the options are usually accept, amendment required before acceptance, measure revision and resubmission required, and reject because of novelty, or reject because it contains basic errors and faulty judgments. Something important, at the end of this report or questionnaire, there are 2 boxes. And then you can add to the comment of the authors, you can copy paste your report, or you can upload a PDF file. In the comments to the editors, you can write wherever you don't feel necessarily comfortable, or you don't want to share with the authors, but you still want for the editors to know. And we will treat those comments absolutely confidentially. We will not share them with the authors. So what happened after that? So you will receive a confirmation email, and we'll look at the reports together with perhaps a report from a board member. We will make a first decision, as I said before, and we might consult a third party, which we'll usually call an adjudicator. And then we'll make first decision. We will let the authors know, and you might be asked to review a revised version of the paper later on in the process when a revised version of the manuscript is submitted. Okay, just quickly talking about reason for not to be a reviewer. So there's a lot of reasons why you should do a peer review, but there are many. For not be a reviewer, and one of those is like you have a conflict of interest, like you are a colleague of the authors or someone who helped the authors in their work, or you're a direct competitor, and so in that case you probably want to decline, and you can clarify your position with the editorial staff. And I think it's probably better declining at the moment of the invitation, just to avoid the problems later. Okay, so peer review, as I said, is a vital part of scholarly publishing, and it's important that people who do this work are rewarded. And for this reason, IOPP is partnered with Pablons, which is an online service that enables reviewers to track, verify, and showcase their peer review contribution. Pablons is completely free for academics, and we have helped verify over 120,000 reviews in our journals through Pablons. We also run a review awards, where the top reviewers for our journals are rewarded and publicly acknowledged. We judge on quality, quantity, and the timeliness of the reviews. Last year, we awarded 1,640 researchers. We award the Outstanding Review Award, and then 30 journals award the prizes for the best reviewers of the year. So we have an overall 30 best reviewers for IOPP in 2021, and we are at the moment in the process to pull out the data, and the winners of the Outstanding Review Awards 2020 will be disclosed very shortly. Okay, so that's it for me. I hope that you found this useful. For more information, you can visit ioppublishing.org. There's a lot of things that I said are there. Again, if you want to volunteer in becoming a reviewer for IOPP Publishing, Susie, please feel free to share my email address, circulate my email address, contact details, and be happy to help. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer to them. Thank you.